Good morning, everyone. This is a joint hearing this morning with House Commerce and Economic Development and House Human Services. We're having a discussion on vaping enforcement. And so it is Thursday, May 8th, 2025 at 9:05 in the morning. So I want to welcome everyone. Welcome Human Services Committee joining us. We're pleased to have you here. I think just to tee up this discussion this morning, last year, I think there was a proposal to eliminate flavored vapes in the state. That didn't go through. And I think there was a discussion of whether or not we are fully enforcing our laws. And we did have a discussion last year with Liquor Lottery, as well as the Attorney General's office, to better understand what is going on in enforcement, and namely on the internet. And we learned that there had been a pilot project for a couple of years that provided some funds to Liquor Lottery, that they had an investigator do some work online, and passed the results over to the Attorney General's office, who was able to contact these people that were selling vapes in the state, and were able to, over the 2-year period, I think, bring in around $900,000 in fines. And I think, so we continued that discussion, thought it was probably a good idea, maybe Liquor Lottery have a full-time investigator that's just doing online sale, looking at online sales. But we were told by Liquor Lottery that they would be able to supply an investigator to do that. So a year later, I think we want to find out how that's going, and make sure that we are enforcing our laws that I think in the end will stop or really significantly curb the vapes that are coming into the state. So for this committee, for House Commerce, it's a consumer protection issue. And I know for Human Services, it's an issue of health, and especially with our youth. So with that, Anne, did you want to add anything to?
No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think first we have Rosemary from the Attorney General's office. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this has been a joint effort with Department of Liquor Lottery and the Attorney General's office to try to help curb some of this. So
that's right. And I prepared some remarks, but happy to take questions. So if you'll allow me.
That's great.
So my name is Rose Kennedy, and I've been at the Office of the Attorney General since June of 2022. I joined the Consumer Protection Unit last May. And since last May, my primary job has been tobacco enforcement. So what that mostly involves is making sure that Vermont remains compliant with the MSA, or the multi-settlement agreement that was concluded in the late 1990s. I will tell you that DOL, Department of Tax, myself, we work year-round to make sure we remain compliant. It's a big part of what we do. It's vital to what we do. We recently announced that we received $23 million approximately this year from the settlement. I think over $800 million since it began. So I don't want to undermine the important work that we do. And on that front, monitoring every single combustible cigarette that is sold in Vermont, making sure it's compliant not only with Vermont state laws, but also federal laws and rule your own tobacco. And that's it primarily in brick and mortar stores, but also online as well. In addition to ensuring the compliance with the MSA, I've been tasked with attempting to address this ever emerging market that includes electronic nicotine delivery systems. I call them ENDS. People call them vapes, e-cigarettes, and nicotine pouches. The Attorney General's office believes that tobacco and nicotine products remain harmful to Vermont consumers, as they are highly addictive and has attempted throughout the years to combat their illegal sales. Foremost in our minds, and I know in my mind, when I'm doing this work, I am mindful that the MSA may have been successful in curbing some folks away from combustible cigarette smoke, but I'm also very mindful that this new market, including vapes and nicotine pouches, may be growing a new generation of addicted folks. I have a 23-year-old. I'm constantly on the lookout for fruity flavor smell in my house when friends are over, and have a lecture prepared because I don't want anyone to start these products, especially youth. As of 2023, according to the Vermont Department of Health, 16% of Vermont high school students said they had used e-cigarettes at least once in the past 30 days. And what is most concerning about that number is that of those students, 37% said they use them daily. So it definitely shows an addictive trend. We know that something like 86% of kids that first try these products do so because they're offered in flavors that are attractive to them. You've all heard them, like blue, ice, mango, banana, whatever, fruity pops, whatever. Obviously, our concern is they are marketed to kids and make them attractive and downplay their addictive qualities. Given the harm to Vermont consumers and the appeal to youth, we attempt to enforce against bad actors in the market, both in the context of brick and mortar stores and online. As you know, one very key tool in this, in our ability to combat illegal tobacco and nicotine product sales, is our state's delivery sales ban. That's 7 VSA 1010. It was enacted in 2008 and then amended in 2019 to include nicotine products. I won't read it to you, but basically it says no tobacco or tobacco substitute or even paraphernalia should be shipped through the mail system into Vermont through online sales. So it's a really good role. And just to compare it, under federal law, there is a PACT Act amendment that happened in 2020 that does limit online sales of these products, but mostly around youth. And there are lots of exceptions. It's not supposed to go through the US mail system, but there are exceptions. So all this to say, Vermont has a good law. And thank you, because I like this law. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, I was asked to present at a conference in San Diego to a group of AAGs from across the country about this law and how we've used it. I think it's fair to say that other states are very jealous of this law and are trying to figure out how to model one in their own state and sort of our enforcement actions under it. Vermont is one of 17 states that have a ban like this. Under the law, a sale online of these products would be considered not only a violation of the sales ban, which would carry a $5,000 civil penalty, but also a violation of the Consumer Protection Act here in Vermont, which would carry a $10,000 penalty for each sale. And in addition, the Attorney General's office can seek injunctive relief under both laws. Since 2020, our office, along with DOL, have worked together to target online sellers of tobacco and tobacco substitute products. I'm sure DOL will be here soon and we'll discuss their efforts. But based on their work and our office's subsequent investigations, again, since 2020, our office has initiated investigations of approximately 34 online sellers and have reached settlement resolutions with the majority of these sellers that have now resulted in approximately $1.3 million in civil penalties, plus injunctive relief that requires the end of the online sale practice. Most notably, in October of 2024, our office announced that it had reached a settlement with Amazon because its sellers were selling tobacco and nicotine products into Vermont in violation of the delivery sales ban. Based on a sale conducted by DOL and subsequent investigation by our office, we were able to resolve the matter with Amazon with a payment of $400,000 to Vermont, $400,000. Additionally, we negotiated some injunctive relief with Amazon Namely that starting in January of 2025 and for 4 years subsequent, they will provide us with a list of anyone who has evaded their tobacco controls. Amazon claimed that they had tobacco controls in place, but some of their sellers, they have independent sellers, were masterful in sort of getting around their setup. So they have agreed, and they did in January of 2025 give us the first list. Our office is committed to continuing to work with DOL to address illegal online sales. In fact, your request for testimony caught us in the middle of conversations about the latest round of online sales that they've been doing. I think they started in February, and we have been having discussions about next steps and what our plan is going forward. Based on prior handling of these cases, we expect to conduct streamlined, expedited investigations with quick resolutions, negotiated settlements that address both civil penalties and the end of the prohibited sales. Our close partnership with DOL, tax, and the Department of Health represents an important public health, consumer protection, and regulatory enforcement collaboration. In addition to individual websites, we will continue to look at social media platforms. They're a little bit more complicated, and I'm hoping DLL gives you a little bit more detail on that. But we want to make sure that we're holding them accountable for any sales that take place through their site if they are responsible. Additionally, if I can make a plug, we recently updated our website to include a link for folks to directly report any online sales to the Attorney General's office or any underage sales of tobacco products or tobacco substitute products that might occur in a brick and mortar store. So I can give that to you so you have it, but we're hoping to generate some more reports directly to our office that, of course, we'll work with DLL to investigate. And with that, I will take questions.
Thank you so much for the information. This is really helpful. I have a 14-year-old who comes home regularly and tells me that she does not use the bathroom at school because of the smell. And like, she said, you basically walk into a wall of vape. All the public restrooms in the high school, and it's a large high school.
Right.
And I've heard that from other friends, similar situations. So I'm excited to hear about this new website hotline. So is that like publicized to schools? Because I think
That's a great idea. I will definitely make sure to do that. I mean, we're in pretty good contact with I know they were here at the State House recently, the youth that rallied against vape. So I have contacts with them, but I can certainly reach out to the schools and make sure they have it too, so that kids get it.
Because I do think that a lot of the kids who don't vape feel
Yeah.
kind of helpless
Yeah.
in schools because the school administration doesn't really have the resources oftentimes to really deal with it as appropriately as they need to. So to give the actual students and the youth a tool that maybe they could utilize.
That'd be great. Thank you for that suggestion.
What are some of the enforcement techniques and methods that are used if something like that is reported to your office?
Well, so obviously, if they're youth that are getting it, I guess we would try to figure out where they got it from. And if it's from an online website, we would investigate that. If it's from a brick and mortar, I think DOL would go out and talk to them.
And what are the responses afterwards, after the investigation is done? What's the outcome of these?
I mean, we would look to civil penalties, and DOL has other resources they could look to, but I mean, we would try to figure out everything that we could do against them.
And currently at this time, how many investigations are going on in regards to the sales online?
So I think this latest round was somewhere around 20 sale or, attempted purchases. I don't think they all resulted in purchases. I think less than half actually shipped the product, but I think that's the number.
Good, thank you.
Sure.
A question regarding Amazon, and it was great to hear that there was a settlement reached with Amazon. I'm curious, I imagine corporation of that size can be challenging to go up against. Do they assert a defense that they're not actually the seller?
Yeah, and that predates me, but I believe that they did, and that's kind of in our mind, looking at other platforms. I think the difference with Amazon was that they do provide a service to their independent sellers, which is they have a warehouse and they ship things. So it's a little bit different than other platforms, but again, it predates me, but we got through those defenses and were able to reach a resolution.
Thank you for being here. So we heard about the market share, when we were taking testimony originally on these laws. And you've assessed fines of $1 million. I mean, how big is the market in Vermont for these products?
Well, that's over 34 websites and they range pretty greatly from $20,000 to, like I said, Amazon was 400,000. I think off the top of my head, it'd be hard to tell you the average. It looked like there were a few 100,000. And our office sort of tried to assess how long they'd been doing these sales before they got caught, how many sales they'd been doing, whether or not there had been any prior involvement with them. So it's kind of, an assessment that's done on an individual basis, but that was the cumulative settlement amount.
The questions?
I'm just curious if there, so I had an intern from, sorry, from UVM, this, session, and, he brought up that a Galaxy gas, and then this is like tangentially, related. I'm just curious if it's come up in the consumer protection world where, for whippets, where there are products that are being sold, the nitrous oxide, flavored nitrous oxide is being marketed to teens and kids in their TikToks and things like that. And then they're easily bought. There's a New York Times article about Galaxy Gas in particular, but similar to the vapes, there's lots of companies that are selling these through Amazon and other online retailers. And I was just curious if that has come up in a related kind of
I'll be honest, it hasn't yet, but it is now. Great.
Let's make it interesting.
Yeah, and I think it'd be really, it would be good if the Attorney General's office takes a look at that over the summer, lets these two committees know, so that if that's something that should be banned in the state, that we can work together to make sure that that's not happening in the state. I think sounds like it could be extremely dangerous for kids.
Great, thank you.
We ban one thing, something else.
Yep.
I know that, with the pouches, the companies can use really addictive kind of sales techniques that get them into kind of rewards points and that sort of thing. Do you find that the same thing is true in the vape world as well?
So we get reports once in a while. This fall, DLL conducted their brick and mortar audit of combustible cigarettes in the stores. And we asked them to also be really mindful of how the vapes were marketed in the sales too, or in the stores too, to see rebates, coupons, if it's put next to kid products, things like that. I'll be honest, there were a couple of photos, like the Department of Health, our office, and DLL, we all went through the photos together. There were a few that were concerning, but when we broke them down, there really weren't that many that were advertised that way. Now we're learning that when you buy some of these products, you'll get immediately a QR code that gives you a rebate. And we're still trying to figure out how to track that, how to figure out who's doing that exactly. There's a lot in this that's kind of hard to figure out, to be honest. But as far as the actual rebates that you can see in the store, we didn't find that to be a huge problem. I'll let DOL speak on that as well, but it's certainly something that we're mindful and always looking out for.
Other questions? When you're looking at other platforms like TikTok and do they have policies in place that restrict people from selling these types of vapes and tobacco products?
I'll be really honest with you, it's something I need to start looking into. Like I said, I've been doing this since May, so there's been a lot for me to catch up on. But in San Diego, that was one of the big topics, was like, how do these platforms work? Are they even aware that their platforms are being used? So I don't know if they have like a tobacco control policy like Amazon did that's being evaded, or if they don't. And that's kind of something else in my list to do this summer, to try to figure all that out. So again, I'm happy to come back to you and tell you what I find, but
That'd be
it's gonna be
great.
a little bit more time.
I think we look at these platforms as, a place where people gather and, and talk and everything else, but they also provide, it's almost a service that's being provided to them to be able to do this. And when the illegal activity starts to happen, seems to me like they have some responsibility. They have shared responsibility. And so,
I will say I'm on a working group with a group of AAGs from around the country, and we've been dealing with imagery that we see on some of these platforms. So not necessarily the sale, but just the imagery. And I don't know if you've seen it lately. There are a lot of folks that do like daily vape shows, like the flavor of the day, or like what all you can do with your vape. And when we brought it to their attention, there's been some mixed response about like trying to take it down, or, this is an independent person. We don't control the marketplace of ideas type of thing. So it's an ongoing conversation, even on the imagery front. But again, I'll have to get back to you on.
I just wonder if some of the people that are providing these shows, have a connection to tobacco companies.
Yeah, it's been hard to figure that out, to tell you the truth. And if, when we are able to figure out the tobacco company, I'll say, this group that I'm with, they have sent letters to the tobacco company, and there has been pretty good response about taking it down from their end, or asking that it be taken down, or don't use our product. But a lot of the times it's not very easy to figure out the product itself.
So I really appreciate you being here and laying this out for us. You said we have really good laws in the state.
Delivery sales ban.
Delivery sales ban.
That's a very good law.
This delivery sales ban, right?
Yeah.
It is really helpful in this. And we still have a big problem.
Yeah.
So this is your full-time job, just tracking this down, or do you have other pieces?
I do some consumer protection work. I do some charitable trust work as well, but this is the big chunk of my work.
And so what else can we do as a state to support protecting our kids from these products?
So you mentioned the flavor ban when you started. I mean, I'll be honest, I was jealous of other states at this conference in San Diego that have flavor ban laws, because that would be nice and clean cut about certain things. Minnesota, for instance, has a ban that sort of targets products that look like kids' toys or school supplies, or flavors that are specifically like candy flavored, maybe not the fruit as much, but like candy or cereal flavor. Those laws would be helpful. I think our office, as well as DOL, Department of Tax, Department of Health, we've been having conversations about, short of a flavor ban, what could help. I think we are working on some proposals to hopefully present next year. But yeah, it'd be nice to have some more tools in the tools box. This is a very good tool for online sales. It's not so helpful otherwise. And a big chunk of this is that the Food and Drug Administration has primary authority over these products, and they've been kind of in a holding pattern for a while. They got overwhelmed with market applications for these products. And so, again, I'm on a working group with a lot of states where we've been trying to figure out what we do while we wait for them. And yeah, it's not that easy.
And their line just got longer there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, just to piggyback on what Ray started with, the Vermont Principals Association is, they've been trying to figure out how to support getting it out, because what they've learned, they'll find out that, certain people are vaping in their schools, and they're like, They find out where they get the vapes from, they go online and it is,
Gone.
well, but it's so easy.
Oh, it is.
It's so easy for them to get it. It's so easy for anybody to order. There's no age verification. There's nothing. I mean, it's not supposed to be sold online at all, right?
Yeah.
So they don't really need an age verification, but it's so easy.
Yeah, so I will reach out to them because that would be great information for us to just have those websites, especially if a lot of these websites do vanish and move to another website. And so it's kind of hard to catch some of them, but like if the principals are going on or teachers are going on and finding it, we'd love that information.
Couple other questions, I'm sorry, but can you, statewide, and we took a lot of testimony on this last year, but I don't remember, how many states do have a flavor ban? And are they finding it successful against the online sales? And then secondly, if you know off the top of your head, if the states that have the flavor ban include menthol?
Yeah, good question. I'm not sure exactly how many states have flavor bans, and I'm not sure if those states also have online the same sort of delivery sales ban that we have. They might not. I'll have to get back to you on that.
That would be great.
And the menthol question, I was given the sort of history of what happened in Vermont and the conversation over menthol, I kind of focused my attention on these states that sort of tended to focus on kid flavors or kid looking like apparatus. So I'm not sure how menthol has been treated in other states, but I can certainly look into that and get back to you.
That would be great. Thank you so
Okay.
much.
Just quick, does this vape enforcement also extend to like, purchase of flavored CBD or THC?
So I don't think in Vermont you can buy those products online, but under 1010, they're not specifically listed. I haven't really looked at the cannabis statutes. That hasn't been my focus, but I'm pretty sure that they're also prohibited from online sales.
Any questions for Rose? Great, thank you. We look forward to
Hearing from Lisa.
hearing,
Yeah.
probably in late fall would be great. I think we had Brandon and Skylar on Zoom with us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Yes, our pleasure. I have some prepared, an opening statement if the committees would like that, and then happy to take questions, but whatever the committee would prefer.
Oh, we'd love to hear your opening statement and see how DLL is doing with this matter.
Absolutely. Well, chairpersons, members of the committee, I want to thank you for inviting me personally and the department to appear today to discuss our online tobacco enforcement efforts, as well as our other tobacco products efforts. My name is Skylar Genest. Since 2017, I've served as the chief investigator for the Vermont Department of Liquor and Lottery, and I've served as the senior director of licensee operations for the department for the last 4 years. For those of you that might be unfamiliar with the Department of Liquor and Lottery, our mission statement is quite clear. We exist to create and maintain a regulatory framework of licensing, compliance, enforcement, and education through partnerships, which would result in the responsible sale and consumption of alcohol, tobacco, and gaming products in Vermont. And we do that every day with integrity, transparency, compassion, and respect, as well as innovation. And I think the innovation will be a focal point of what some of our work looks like today. We do this all ensuring public safety and returning 100% of our generated profits to Vermont communities. Just for a point of reference, our Office of Compliance and Enforcement is our law enforcement division. They take on the bulk majority of our public safety mission and is comprised of 12 field investigators geographically dispersed across the state. Under Title VII, Chapter 40 of Vermont statutes, state law establishes that the Department of Liquor and Lottery is charged with the licensing and enforcement of the laws that govern the sale and distribution of tobacco products within the state. In addition, Chapter 40 directs DLL to work in concert, as you've heard this morning, with the Attorney General's Office Consumer Protection Division, most notably specifically under Title VII, 1010, which prohibits unfair and deceptive acts and practices around the sale of tobacco products. Over the last 5 years, the department has strengthened its both brick and mortar and online monitoring and enforcement program in 5 key areas. The first is to continue our statutorily required controlled test purchases from all licensed brick and mortar retailers to ensure at least 90% compliance in terms of sales refused to minors. Similarly, we've expanded our controlled purchases from online retailers. Since 2020, around 4,500 compliance checks have been conducted, and 382 of those checks resulted in sales to minors. Those are our brick and mortar numbers for reference. Online checks have been, since 2020, around 600 compliance checks since we started. And year to date, just now in 2025, we've conducted 23 checks with 9 sales resulting. Second point that I'd like to bring to the committee's attention is we believe that data is the key to this challenge. We've integrated real-time analytics into our work. Our tobacco compliance work is visualized real-time in a program known as Project Rabbit that's hosted on the department's website, which allows residents in local communities in Vermont to see compliance-related data and see the retailers who are operating either responsibly or irresponsibly in their backyards. In terms of online work, as the members of these committees likely understand, the World Wide Web is a rather large place. And as a reminder, we have 12 investigators with respectively a pretty large mission set on their shoulders, not covering just this issue relative to tobacco sales, both brick and mortar and online, but around beverage alcohol, as well as lottery-related investigations and criminal investigations related to cannabis retail. So to aid in this challenge, we are actively exploring the use of artificial intelligence to perform internet surveillance on our behalf, to flag potential online sellers who are willing to disregard our delivery sales ban and engage in online sales into the state of Vermont. Third point, as you've already heard about a little bit this morning, is our partnership with stakeholders. We work closely with the Vermont Attorney General's office. We also work with the Department of Tax, the Department of Education, the Department of Public Health, as well as local coalitions and community groups that are strategically focused on preventing and prevention work around tobacco products getting into the hands of minors. We share our intelligence with them, we receive complaints from them, and we coordinate our investigations with these groups of stakeholders on a regular basis. The fourth point is updating our educational outreach. We've deployed targeted training for retailers and carriers related to their obligations under Vermont law and the AG's consumer protection rules. We firmly believe that education is the starting point for which we can obtain compliance relative to our regulatory framework, and we put a high amount of emphasis on education first. And then the last point, we are proactively looking at our regulatory framework to ensure that we're addressing loopholes. A recent administrative rule change in 2022 addressed just such a loophole where it prohibited our brick and mortar retailers from quote unquote self-distributing or obtaining a wholesale tax license from the Department of Tax and then sourcing their own vape products themselves, being vertically integrated, if you would. I thank you for your time this morning. I look forward to answering any questions you have about our work, and thank you for your efforts to further safeguard Vermont's young people and preserve the integrity of our regulated marketplace.
Thank you, Skylar. Questions?
Back here, sorry, I don't think you can see me. Question regarding, you mentioned 12 field investigators. Do each of those investigators work across all of your areas of interest, or are some dedicated specifically to the issues we're talking about today?
We found that we actually get economies of scale in not siloing the work that any one investigator can do. We believe in a whole investigator model where we become rather robustly trained in kind of all of the doctrinal spaces in which the department works. So we don't have any one individual investigator dedicated to this work. We instead collaboratively as a team address these efforts again across all 12 field investigators.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit more about the education that you provide? I mean, I worry that the way our kids gain information today is not the way we share information anymore. And I'm just curious what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. First, let me clarify. Our educational outreach is generally strategically targeted toward our licensed universe. So we educate those individuals who hold licenses by the department relative to responsible sale. So as a point of reference, Title VII requires everyone who engages in the sale of regulated products, either tobacco or beverage alcohol, every 2 years they have to obtain a training from the Department of Liquor and Lottery. Within those training modules, we talk about the delivery sales ban. We talk about what constitutes a lawful sale of tobacco products. And so much as we're regulating our licensees, which is rather large, anywhere varies plus or minus the years, but around 1,000 retailers selling tobacco products, brick and mortar in the state. We educate them on everything from fake IDs to, again, where they can lawfully source their products, and again, about the delivery sales ban. What that does is that actually brings information back to us. Our licensees share with us things that they see in the marketplace relative to maybe other licensed retailers who are sourcing their products from illegal sources. They let us know about trends they're seeing relative to demand for attempted purchases from minors. So that education really opens up a communication pathway for us where we actually get a lot of information from them. But I do want to make it clear, our education really isn't targeted toward youth. It's targeted toward our licensed universe.
And then just to follow up, and then it's the person who you are training's job to train their staff.
That is true. We do have an in-house training program where we train trainers within an establishment, but we also offer 24/7 online learning modules. We do in-person training seminars where our education team goes to licensed retailers and provides that training. It's a rather busy team made up of 2 training coordinators, and they do a great job. They train roughly 10,000 people a year.
Okay, so you're training the staff and the license holder both.
That's
Great.
correct.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this information. Can you talk a little bit more about your recent, I'm assuming it's recent use of AI, and has it been successful? Are you seeing an increase in that enforcement?
Yeah, happy to talk about it. That program isn't quite operational yet. We're still working on building lawful mechanisms to engage in that activity. We're partnering with the Agency of Digital Services and the Director of Artificial Intelligence to build a model that works well and is in and of itself not violating certain internet protection rules. So it is not operational yet, but it's something that we see coming in the near future. And again, what this would do would be proactive identification of online retailers, right? As it is right now, our online compliance checks really happen one of 2 ways. The first way is we receive a complaint from the public. It could be a concerned parent who says, my child ordered a vape product from this website, and so we'll engage in an investigation there. It could come from, similarly, we could get a complaint from community members that see certain products popular in their communities that they know aren't sold in their communities. So they know it's not coming from a brick and mortar store, good evidence to believe that those products are coming from online sources. So we will do our best to identify retailers who are selling those specific products and then engage in compliance work online there. The other pathway for us to engage in these compliance checks is simply our investigators spending time Googling or doing open source searching of retailers. And that can take forever. The internet is a large place. And so that's a huge time drain for our investigators, which could be spent on other mission sets. So where we see the artificial intelligence to come in and assist us would be to provide that surveillance, do those open source checks, and then return to us with a high confidence level that this website is likely to engage in a sale into Vermont, and then allow our investigators to engage in that compliance check to attempt to make a controlled purchase.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This is a little bit of a tangent, and maybe the answer is a follow-up, not on the spot. But when our committee last year was working on the vaping ban bill, we were also concerned about access to alcohol products given the new single serve and their availability in small stores anywhere, and the question of commingling with look-alike products that were non-alcohol and whether there should be a restriction on where they're placed. And I think, I testified in GovOps about our and whether that should go in place. And I think it was your department that said, well, not yet. We're looking at that. We're going to review that. We'll be able to report back. So I think that's an ongoing concern for us about accessibility and whether there is or isn't a problem with co-location that, even parents are like, yeah, throw it in the cart.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's similarly a concern for the department and something that we're actively data gathering on. So I will bring to attention relative to direct-to-consumer alcohol. We did engage in a pilot program 2 years ago, and we have a report relative to the results of that. Bottom line up front, none of our compliance checks, 0% compliance rate with our direct-to-consumer shipping relative to the myriad of laws and regulations relative to that happening in the state. We haven't historically engaged in a lot of enforcement activity around direct-to-consumer shipping of alcohol, but this did shed some light on this as a severe area of concern for us. Secondly, relative to the commingling of maybe historically non-beverage alcohol products that have crossed over, we're actively involved in a compliance program right now where we're specifically looking at those what we would call historically non-alcoholic products that are now alcoholic products. And we will compile the results of that compliance work and see, one, how prevalent it is across our retailers that are selling those products if they're quote unquote commingled with beverage alcohol products. And then two, what the compliance rate is on refusing sales to our minors of those products.
Thank you very much. That was, we'll continue to look forward to finding out what you find. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Question? Emily?
I was going to ask you the same question I'd asked before about, are you finding kind of deceptive sales techniques and kind of, I guess, addictive sales techniques in terms of coupons, QR codes, and that sort of stuff with vape products in the same way that you're finding them with the tobacco pouches or anything like that?
I think we do have I think we have citable evidence to see that some of those practices happening in the in the regulated market. I don't know if we get a lot of transparency for the online sales because frankly, that's a legal activity in and of itself. But what I can testify to is we have good evidence to see in our brick and mortar stores, we see certain practices that I think certainly trend toward what you're alluding to relative to maybe deceptive or I would even maybe go as far as to say predatory sales models where it incentivizes the sale of a addictive product. So case in point, it's common in the retailer world that the manufacturers of maybe traditional tobacco products will offer incentives to discount the products at retail, even to the point of sometimes lower than the wholesale cost. So the prices on those products will be significantly lower than competitors and kind of the market average of those products. They'll sell it at that lower rate, and then the manufacturers of those products will rebate to the retailer a certain dollar value relative to their sales. That would be, let me be very clear, that would be regulatorily prohibited with beverage alcohol, but as of right now, that is not a prohibited practice relative to tobacco and tobacco substitutes.
Just so everybody knows, I'm a retailer. I have a convenience store, so I have a tobacco and alcohol, second-class alcohol license. And I do not sell vapes, although I've been encouraged by my distributor to sell them. I choose not to. Also, when we talk about the ready-made drinks and how some of them are made to look like different soda cans and tea cans and things like that, I stay away from those as well. I don't want to confuse my clerks and be on the hook for from the, someone selling something that they shouldn't be selling them to. But Skylar, I'm wondering what's the compliance rate right now, with retailers?
Relative to those, are you talking about globally for beverage alcohol or specifically for those ready to drink or maybe?
No, I think like, the sting operations that happen around the state, for tobacco and then for alcohol. What's a compliance rate with the stores?
Compliance rates are really dependent on a time frame. So I can certainly provide you with the compliance rate, for any given period of time. If you want globally, since we've started collecting and analyzing data from that, I can also provide that as well. It's also readily available on our website under our Project Rabbit dashboard. But if you'd like, what's your pleasure? What would be the time frame?
I mean, kind of like, where are we right now? And are you able to analyze, like, over the last 5 years, looking year after year or every 6 months, whenever you're collecting data, that, are we seeing, spikes of, it going down, it going up? And are we thinking that there could be something going on that's changing the percentages?
We are routinely monitoring that on a daily basis, and that's what Project Rabbit does for us. It visualizes. I can't share, and I don't know if that's permissible for these committee meetings, but I certainly could show you how we visualize this and how we pay attention to this on a real-time basis.
I think Anna Grace could make you a co-host.
Okay, that would be great, and I'd be happy to show you how we visualize this. Okay, I can share now. Throwing a very busy graph on the screen. Please let me know if when you can see it.
Yep, it's up.
Okay. What you're seeing on the screen is what we refer to as Project Rabbit, Rabbit being an acronym for resource allocation based on an intelligence toolkit. Again, 12 investigators spread across the state. We need to know that we're making sure we're putting our investigators in the right place at the right time relative to the needs of the regulated community. So right now I'm showing you, since we've started collecting data, co-locating with my taking over of our compliance and enforcement team in 2017, our compliance rate globally is 90.94%. Now that obviously ebbs and flows as you look at certain time periods, but we break this down by location, by town, compliance rate by year. You can see 2022 was our lowest year, looking at year-over-year trends. But we generally stay around our statutorily required 90% compliance rate. So when we see, dips and trends, maybe alerts relative to diminished compliance in any one location, that's when we deploy resources to those areas. So it could be our education division that we send to retailers to educate them a little bit more strategically relative to the sales of the products. It could be our enforcement team focusing compliance, not only compliance checks, but also our regulatory inspection work, where we go in and we look at the business operations to help diagnose what's causing any sort of dip in compliance at a certain retailer or at a certain in a certain location. This dashboard is really the way we do it. And so you can see, and this is publicly available. It's hosted on our website. You can tailor this to any given time period. If we shorten this down to, that's roughly a year's worth of compliance. You can see the compliance rate change. You can see the number of checks in any given town. You can see, again, in this time period, 945 checks conducted, 745 didn't sell, meaning 61 sold and 103 were attempted but not completed. We visualize this just for tobacco. Similarly for alcohol, we have the same sort of dashboard relative to our alcohol compliance work. And really what I want to show you, Mr. Chair, is this all leads into a strategic inspection dashboard where this project really helps us analyze all of the data points relative to how our retailers are doing and tells us who needs potentially more resources in that area. So you can see everything is factored into this relative to data points related to complaints, the days since our last inspection in that activity, their compliance work, whether or not their license is expiring soon. This location point here takes into consideration proximity to schools. So we strategically emphasize retailers who are in close proximity to schools. And so this data helps put us in the right places at the right times relative to trends happening in and across the state.
John?
Thank you for this. I'm curious, when a store changes hands or there's a shift in ownership, is that something that you're aware of and you're able to ensure that people, the incoming ownership is where they need to be? Do they get flagged for like, oh, we should make sure that so-and-so is on the up and up? Does that factor into where you go and when?
Absolutely, in a couple of different ways. First and foremost, even before receiving the license to sell a regulated product, they have to take that training that we talked about earlier that's put on by the department. So before we'll even issue the license, they're trained by us. And then as our licensing system issues a license, it dispatches an investigator to go do a new licensee introduction, where we talk with them about trends that we know are happening in the area, trends in the marketplace. We are available to ask any questions about regulations or laws that they might have. So we do have mechanisms in place to ensure that when we have a new licensee, they are receiving resources right from the start.
I think I heard that you're going in there with some current information about trends that are relevant to that part of the state. Is that the case?
That's right. So this, again, we use this dashboard and we can kind of get a finger on the pulse of what's going on in any one jurisdiction. So again, we can look at tobacco compliance rates by town. We can jump to this. We can jump to this dashboard. If we have a new licensee, say in the Bolton area, we can tailor the data and say, okay, within the last year, you guys have, we have, it looks like one tobacco retailer. I grabbed a small town, but you got 100% compliance rate. Doing a great job. And so it may be different for a larger jurisdiction, and let's say Bennington, if we throw Bennington in there. Okay, so we got a little bit lower compliance rate than what we want to see in any point in time.
This all happens at Rep Cooper's area.
Too funny.
But yes, just to answer your question succinctly, we do have good data on any one location at any one point in time.
Really?
When you see a dip in compliance, is there any particular driver for that?
It varies. It varies. I can tell you that the data point that corresponds the best with compliance is training. We see low compliance when clerks aren't trained or their training has expired. And so we believe that, and that's again why we put a significant amount of emphasis on our education division. So we'll come in, and often when we see low compliance, it corresponds with either expired or non-existent training.
When you're a retailer, that's not a good thing. Tends to hit your wallet a little bit. Well, Skylar, thank you. I think for us, I think we're waiting to see how AI can assist you and how that works. I think, when we were talking last year about, putting more laws on the books. I think we wanted to try to enforce the laws we have first to see if that puts a dent in how especially kids are accessing tobacco products. And so I think we're starting to get a feel for that, that enforcement does work, especially the online stuff. It's time consuming, but I think with the AI piece, once that's up and running, I think we'll see even more results. So certainly appreciate your time. Appreciate the time of the Attorney General's office as well. And we'll keep working together. Two committees will work together and working with you all as well to keep going forward to protect consumers in Vermont. So thank you both very much. And thank you, Rose, for coming in this morning as well.
Thank you.
So